Welcome to And Friends, a showcase about the amazing people involved in all spheres of the entertainment industry, discussing the good, the bad, and the ugly, but most importantly, creating a platform to truly humanize our industry, because amazing events don't happen on their own. Today, we are very lucky enough to have Blaise join us. Blaise has one of the most extensive portfolios in the industry, has played a pivotal role in developing a large part of the South African music scene before heading to Amsterdam to take over the world. The man always has so many things on the go. So without any more introduction, Blaise, how you doing?
Hey man, I'm good. Glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
I think the first place to start is for you to maybe let everyone know your current role in the industry and what you're up to.
Yeah, so we're working on work with NPP 88 and the Beanstalk, predominantly in the UK, but across Europe, and we conceptualize and develop brand activations that roll out through major festivals. As well as like a very exciting project we're doing now is we've designed the main stage for a large Spanish festival. So we'll fabricate that, install it, roll it out through the show. Yeah, so that's one part of it, I guess. Work as a project manager within that space, and the other side is I'm really focused on building a gateway for Africa into Europe.
Awesome. Yeah, that's really important right now, to be honest.
Yeah, it's interesting. When I moved over here, and it's been a year now, I immediately started getting artists and people in the industry, production managers, techs, everybody just going, "Hey man, I want to come over. Hey man, I want to tour. Hey, how can you get me in? You know, I'm coming over.
Yeah.
Like, where can you fit me?" So there's a massive demand from the industry.
But I mean, that also comes down to a lot of the relationships you have, and I think that would lead perfectly into discussing like a bit about your origin story. Like everyone in the industry knows Blaise, but I think a lot of people outside of the industry don't know who Blaise is because you've been so like hidden in the shadows, but throughout the years built up such a huge network of relationships. I think you have quite a unique and interesting origin story. So like what drew you into the industry? What was the journey up from the beginning?
Yeah, I guess there's always been a natural gravitation towards the entertainment. Like when I was real young, my mom used to throw small dinner parties and stuff, and I would sit there with our like four slot CD player, mixing songs and like just playing background music for them at the dinner parties. And then I started DJing with a mate of mine, and we used to play high school socials, and like 16th birthday parties and weekend parties and all that sort of stuff. But pretty quickly, I realized that I enjoy putting things together more than being like the person on stage that everyone's watching. I enjoy standing back at those moments and really just watching the show, and like watching the effort and the realization of the concept coming together. And so after school, I started a brand called Circus Ninja, which is a clothing label that focused on street culture. That moved into the Bin Store and Gallery, which was a store that stocked Circus Ninja as well as a bunch of other independent products, and a gallery space that hosted exhibitions by lowbrow artists, like one exhibition a month. And in both of those things, I threw parties to promote them. So with Circus Ninja, it was early events at the Armchair Theatre. With the Bin Store and Gallery was the exhibition openings. And then I moved over to the Assembly, which was the big music moment for me. And I absolutely, like, I loved that time and space. Finally had the opportunity to put together shows, to provide entertainment, to work at like the absolute nitty gritty of music, and to work with every single up and coming established artist across the South African spectrum, also with the occasional international shows.
Yeah, because you were responsible for artist booking and venue management and things like that for Assembly, right? So you were curating lineups, chatting to artists, booking them. It was kind of that musical direction of the Assembly was kind of your child.
Yeah. So I started at the Assembly opened on the 12th of December 2007.
I remember. I was
and
there.
I started there. I went to the opening night. Kid of Doom, Lark.
Yeah.
Who else was on that bill now? Yeah, it was Kid of Doom and Lark. And I just remember I was standing there with Duncan, and I said, "So what's the plan? How are you guys doing this? I think I should help." And I had a casual interview the next day, and I started there on Christmas Eve, booking shows for the 28th of December, for 3 days later. So it was always like it was just this barrage of putting amazing stuff together constantly, though, like 3-4 nights a week, just like, and we developed some awesome stuff there. Discotheque, which was like a big moment for the electronic scene. We had the Miller Music series.
Yeah, I mean, I was about to say that it wasn't just about the volume; it was about the diversification of music as well. Like every night was a different theme, and you were bringing in different genres. It wasn't just, I think, from an audience perspective, it was the first time we saw like nightclubs really delivering like quality music genre nights. I don't know. That's my opinion, at least. That's how it felt. Like there was something for everyone, and it wasn't like an afterthought. It was really developed as a concept. Like Discotheque was its own thing
because of the volume of events. I think after my time there, I'd done something like 600 shows. So because of the volume of events, it was we realized quite quickly that developing a format, as opposed to kind of just taking what came, would work better. It would help people understand, different fan groups understand like that the Assembly is for them, and they can come any night, but at the same time, like if they come on a Friday night, they're going to get a dance party. If they come on a Saturday, they're going to get like incredible live music. They come on a Wednesday, they're going to get a student night, So
for sure,
we started putting those together, which helped create some continuity and a better understanding, and also helped me a hell of a lot in terms of how to position things. And then from the Assembly, I did that for a while, and it was absolutely amazing, exhilarating, and thinking back on it, it was completely exhausting.
Like all good things are, for some
exactly.
reason.
Like, but I never felt exhausted in the moment there. I took 6 months off when I left. And I think I slept for the first 3 months. I was like literally like a zombie. I couldn't speak, couldn't move, couldn't do anything. And then I left Assembly. The first time was in 2011, and I went over to Canada, to Vancouver, for 6 months.
Okay.
To kind of explore the scene there, and to expand my mind a little bit and to take a break. Then I came back and carried on at the Assembly with Pierre, who had taken over from me. And then Pierre and I stepped out from the Assembly structure and created a little bit of we were the booking agency, the programming agency for Assembly. So we ran shows. We were like the contracted promoter. And at the same time, I started working with the guys at Daisies.
And what exactly were you doing at Daisies?
So year one, I went in. I asked the guys at Assembly for a weekend off, or for a week off actually, and I went, and I went as a volunteer, and I just jumped in. My first day, I worked with Elaine.
Okay.
And I remember like our job was we were building I think it was like the Fish Eagle deck or something at that point. And we had to carry the scaff poles from the one side, like where the dam is, all the way across site. these scaff bowls have been sitting in the sun for like 4 days, and here's me coming from a venue, you know, from an indoor space where you're not used to sunlight, first of all. Second of all, you're not used to like, you know, lifting scaff bowls. I pick these things up, and I've still got scars on my shoulder and my palms from these things just scalding my hands.
Oh man.
And so I moved, I volunteered and jumped around a bit, and then somehow I started helping Simon Hazel build the backstage of the main stage, and he was like the stage manager of the main stage at that point. And he was like, "Well, what are you doing over the weekend? You know, do you have a role here?" And I was like, "No." So he offered me to stick around and help him.
Awesome.
I helped him run the stage, and I think that was like the first year that Daisies actually ran in some sort of coherent programming time, because I was very used to the assembly. You've got a fixed open, fixed close. You've got to run your show, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we pulled I think we ended that show 10 or 11 minutes over time. Then the following year, I got asked to come back to do that, to help Simon. And that was quite defining. I ended up running that stage for the full period.
Wow.
Which gave Simon a bit of freedom.
Yeah.
And then year 3, I asked Simon if he wanted to come back and help me.
So the tables kind of got turned in a cool way.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he had a lot of other focuses, and I was getting more and more involved there, in terms of chatting about lineups beforehand, kind of being involved in the structure and the layout a little bit more, and kind of spending more time with the guys. And from then I took over the booking of the entertainment. So I ran the entire procurement process, and we built it to a point where we had like 13 stages. We took on an extra day, so we had 4 days.
Yeah,
we used to do the campsite stage on the Thursday nights.
Obviously, at that time, the scene was quite small, even though obviously you guys were doing some big things, but it was obviously quite a tightly knit community back then. What is your like view on the change over time? Obviously, you've seen quite a lot of that change.
Yeah, I think back then there was definitely a strong hustle, and there was people were doing things for the first time a lot of the time, so discovering how to do things as it was happening. You know, there were definitely a lot more artists that were self-managed.
Yeah, definitely.
And you know, slowly over the years, I've seen more and more artists push to a booking agent or have a manager that runs them. So that's definitely been a change. I think from a production point of view, you know, like when we started, there wasn't a lot of gear, there wasn't a lot of understanding of gear, and there were fewer people, I think. There was also, from my perspective and from Daisy's perspective back then, it felt like the Daisy's ownership were there was more competition and more kind of people worked more in their own silos, I think.
That's an interesting observation.
And now it feels like there's a lot more openness to collaboration. There's a lot more discussion between promoters. It might be my position has changed.
Yeah,
so it might be I'm talking to more people. Yeah, but definitely, like, you know, there was this is how we do it, and what are those guys doing over there?
Yeah, maybe it's also, I guess, like you're saying, it was smaller and people were doing it for the first time. There was kind of like a point to prove. Now that, like you're saying, there's a lot more collaboration, there's a lot more communication and information, I guess.
I think it's twofold though. Like the information is also much more readily available now.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, you can go online and you can download a manual on how to run a festival or how to start a festival, whatever it might be. Whereas back then, like you figured it out, and once you knew how to do it, it was like the information age. You held on to that information. You know, now information is free.
Yeah.
You know, now it's about nuancing a concept. It's about having an interesting delivery. It's about the way you market it. It's about the acts you put together. You know, and back then it was more about the fact that you could just put on this big show.
Yeah, for sure. What was the next step after Seed and Rockin' the Daisies?
So after Seed and Rockin' the Daisies, I started I felt ready to start my own agency, I guess. So I started Your Friends, and we brought out The Tallest Man on Earth. We did stuff like the Vans Music Night. We hosted a Halloween party at Cape Town City Hall.
Yeah.
We did a couple of cool shows. And then I moved more into a production role, more into a project space.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, Your Friends was 2012. I carried on with Daisies after Your Friends. Yeah, moved more into production space. I worked at Seed. So after Your Friends, actually, I worked at Seed. And then I moved up to Joburg to run the Joburg office for when Seed expanded to Johannesburg. And Gert and Stefan from Battalion were running the Joburg office at that point. In that Joburg office, there was like Sophia Bendenon, who now works with DeWalt, Charlotte Cantor, who started Mode, PR and communications, and the most lovable Kat Maponyane.
The legend himself, yeah.
Yeah, and like that was a wonderful time. I don't know if Kat thinks it was as wonderful, but like yeah, Kat's an incredible human being in like the effort he put in. I saw him putting that effort in a similar way to how I put that effort in at Assembly. Like Kat wanted this more than anything, you know, and he worked and he grafted and he got involved wherever he could, and
for sure.
And you know that's paid dividends for him in terms of where he is now, also.
For sure. No, well, hopefully we'll hear from him soon. I did reach out to him to come chat to us because we've had also an awesome time working with him. I think he's got such a great story as well. So you've obviously been in the game for quite some time. Obviously, you said pretty much from high school.
Yeah, man, it's been like five or 6 years now, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say all in all, from like a professional perspective, a career perspective, it's been a solid 18 years of working in this space. And that includes the start of things, which is the Circus Ninja shows at, I did a show at the Valve, which is that beautiful venue in town.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, I did the launch of Public Space. It was one of Foco Politica's first shows. And like that was 1,000 capacity show. We packed that out at a time when like people weren't going to shows in that kind of size and space. You know, it was like you were either at the Armchair Theatre or at Mercury or at like even Marvel. You know, it was the scene was really small then. So yeah, there's been a lot of shows
for sure. And then you kind of transitioned into moving overseas. Obviously, talk to us about how that decision came about and how things on that side compared to things on this side.
Yeah, so the seasons are different, obviously, in northern and southern hemisphere. So what I started doing is working summer and summer, and that was around 2015. I'd come over once or twice before and done some small things, and we started getting some good work over here. So yeah, about 2 years ago, started thinking, my future in South Africa. I've got 2 young kids now, also their futures, the opportunity to continuously present themselves in Europe, and looking at how to make a move over here. A year ago, we moved over, and it's been an interesting year in that.
For sure.
Yeah, very interesting year. I mean, when we moved over here, we knew it was challenging.
Yeah.
It's inevitable moving into a new space. And we moved here in April, had a decent summer, which ended in kind of September. Came over and did a few things in South Africa. Like Tom Mish in December.
Which was very well received.
Yeah, which was a lovely, lovely show. And there again, a lovely collaboration with Elaine, who's somebody that I've worked with so much over the past decade. And yeah, and then came back here January, starting to get excited about the year. We've got a good calendar lining up. We've got exciting things on the go. But spending enough time at home because it was the off season in many ways. Um, February starting to get a little bit busier, and then boom.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about obviously COVID. I think it's obviously what everyone is going through right now, and I think it's a very unique situation that globally we're all in together, and that's something I don't think our industry has ever experienced before. I mean, the whole world's experiencing it together. I'm not too sure. I don't think anyone's too sure about like the future of the entertainment industry, and I think it's definitely a scary time. But I think we're seeing a lot of cool stuff come from it, which I think, obviously, I think is worth talking about more than the negative stuff. I think everyone's aware of the negative things, but I kind of want to see how you feel about what's been positive that's been coming out of everything that's going on.
Initially, I thought that this is a fantastic opportunity to kind of to upskill, to refine, to explore best practices, to create new efficiencies, to work on the business, the internals of the business, to do that like pile of stuff that you just never get a chance to do because you're always on the road, or you're always about to start or finish a project, or there's always something that comes up that feels more important. And get your taxes in order, like all those sorts of things.
Yeah.
And I believe that's a great sort of benefit of the moment, is this pause on the external is allowing a lot of time for the internal. I think that comes with a certain innate pressure. There's a lot of it's a lot of expectation, and whether it's us putting it on ourselves, whether it's our colleagues or our clients, going, what are you going to do in this moment? What's going to, if you don't come out of this moment better, leaner, slimmer, faster, whereas like, I think it's really important to just take a few moments to breathe during this time, and to be, and to reflect, and to ground, and to like just step back and assess. People in our game, it's always action. It's always about doing, like, especially behind the scenes, from project and production side, production is exactly that. It's the act of producing, and I think the best thing that I'm taking out of this is that I'm finding myself. I'm finding a lot of like my inner purpose again. I'm in touch with who I want to be. I'm starting to figure out how I'm going to get there. I'm questioning, what my priorities in life are, and what sacrifices I'm willing to make. I'm looking back on the sacrifices I have made, and the opportunities that those have afforded me. I'm trying to use the time to really seek inner gratitude for where I am, and how I've got here, and the people that have guided in this process, professionally and personally. And then also discovering new parts of the like, I guess, new avenues.
I totally agree. Like, taking a breath is so important. It's really impossible for us in a normal season, but it's so against the grain for us production people to do. So again, especially the way it came to a grinding halt, I think it's difficult for a lot of people to accept and to come to terms with. You're kind of stuck with your thoughts, and you have to kind of confront yourself a little bit. It can be really scary sometimes when you stop and you look back for the last 7-10 years, you haven't stopped, and like you kind of go, where did the time go? That was scary. Like, so all these things can kind of like build up on you, and I think it can be really scary for a lot of people to just go from 100 to 0 like immediately.
And it's not just the work that's gone. It's not just like the activity. It's also the fact that, especially for you guys over there, you're in isolation. So you reflecting is great, but like, it's harder to engage. It's harder to be around the people that you're used to being around. So you're losing that too. You're losing like the intimacy of engagement, and you're suddenly forced to confront yourself because there's nothing else to do.
Yeah, I was thinking like working with crews and stuff that become like our family. Like, I don't know, I love going to work because I get to hang out with amazing people. And whereas don't get to do that anymore. It's part of the reason why I love the industry. And I guess, everyone has that thing that like hooked them into the industry, why they love it and why they've stuck around for 18 plus years or whatever it may be. Because I think that you either have to love it or you won't survive in production. And what's the thing that like hooked you? Like, what is the thing that still hooks you? Has it changed? Is it the same thing? What's that magic moment?
Yeah, it's exactly that. That's what hooks me. It's that magic moment. There's a moment in every single show where like I take a breath, I stop, I take a breath, or I catch myself like in activity, and it all just comes crashing in. Like, this is it. There's people here experiencing what you've been a part of creating. You're changing lives. You're creating memories. And I think what our industry does more than many is we really do create memories. We create bonds. We create links. We create friendships. If you're standing on the side of a stage and a band is playing and you're looking at the front row and you're seeing those fans, like the emotion that music and brings out, and you're giving people like incredible times of their lives, and it's so fulfilling. Yeah.
But even the way you talk about it is just like, I don't know, it just has an energy to it that it kind of proves the point of like, you're either in it because you love it, or you just won't survive in the industry. And like, when you're describing now that passion is totally transparent, I think it will resonate with a lot of people in the industry as well, especially those in the live space. We kind of, it's the biggest rush. I don't know that it's not even adrenaline at that point. It's when the lights go down, like, and the crowd goes off. That is like hair raising every time. And it doesn't matter how tough it's been, on the gig, loading in or whatever. It's always just at moments everything becomes worth
it. It's yeah.
Yeah, obviously it has those super high moments we talk about, like tough load-ins and tough things like that. Like, what is the one thing you don't like about the industry? What things that bugs you, that maybe you could change if you could? I mean,
I don't know actually. So there's a side and a part of what we do that is quite dark and sinister at times, and it's not necessarily or specifically an individual or a group. It's just some moments can be really like you have the highs. You can have those really challenging moments of like, working in a venue, for instance. Sometimes the energy would be so intense in that space that like you could anticipate something was going to happen, and a fight would break out, or like, somebody, obviously the result of our industry is entertainment and hedonism for a lot of people, so people can go a bit overboard at times, and I've dealt with some really severe instances of people being like sick, putting themselves through stuff, and like, so that part for me is tough at times. I think there's also the part that I would most like to change is I find that there's a fair amount of advantage that is taken of certain people, certain groups of people, and I would like to balance that more. I think, basic working conditions are a huge thing for me. Treating people fairly, treating people with respect. I think in the South African industry, something that we've always lacked is an association. A group of promoters, a group of industry, a group of production houses, etc. And I see it's happening now, which is fantastic. But some kind of association that speaks for the industry, that is able to ensure that people are looked after, ensure that promoters get a certification, so they're credible. It helps cut out the sharks. It helps cut out the shadies.
It makes a lot of sense because that taking advantage of and having no voice, I think, is it's partly why this was all created as well. This whole series that we're doing is because there is no one to talk for us. There's no one to share information like this with one another. We do it on shows, but there's no like public forum in which people can, I don't know, really voice their stories and their opinions and be heard. Because it's everything's behind the scenes. All that negative, all that bad stuff and the good stuff is all happening behind the scenes. It's behind closed doors, and there's no one to speak out for that any injustice that does happen, and it does happen.
Yeah, it does, and I've seen it. I've been kind of inadvertently party to some pretty shitty things that have happened as well, and like it's definitely the tough side. It's the disappointing side, but it's a side that you see, once you're so deep in, and
you kind of need that context almost,
that
perspective rather.
But that's why. That perspective. But I think that's also why, there's so many. You look at like, let's call them the old dogs. The weathered guys that have like been on site for 25, 30 years. That like, or the guys like that have done just thousands upon thousands of shows. And like sometimes goodness to them, and it's because of some of that stuff that they've gone through themselves, or that seen, or that they haven't been able to like voice. They carry that stuff with them. And I totally agree with you that it's so important to have a safe space as an industry, to communicate with each other, to talk about experiences, whether it's with another promoter, or whether it's outside, or whether it's a business that's struggling, and you don't know what to do. Like that's. And also for individuals, and for individuals coming into the scene as well, for youngsters who are trying to cut their path.
They're gonna shape the people that are leading them, and I think that's also a responsibility that a lot of companies and project managers and stuff need to assume. Like, I don't know, when I came up, there was a lot of shouting and screaming and really derogatory name calling. I just assumed that's just the way it goes. And then you can cross paths with amazing people like yourself, who will suddenly talk to you like a human being and offer guidance and support. And I don't know, just be a normal person, and it kind of shakes you. You're like, why is this so jarring when it should actually be totally normal? But we come into the industry, I think, accepting a lot of the time that it's rough, it's tough, whatever, and that's true. But there's no reason to like abuse people and take advantage of them and not look out for them. They are human beings after all. They're not a piece of gear. I think that's the big.
Some people treat their gear better than the people.
That's a conversation for another day.
No, but I mean, like, I've, when I was young, inexperienced, I think I wasn't sure of what type of leader, and I hadn't developed into that person yet. Also, I've done my fair share of of shouting and my fair share of pointing, and
we all have.
Yeah, exactly. And I own it, and I think as I've grown and as I've taken on more shows and as I've learned from other people and seen how other people engage, and seen how people have engaged, both positive and negative. It's defined how I want to work and how I want to run things. Getting the opportunity to lead is really giving me a chance to shape the kind of leader I want to be and provide the type of mentorship and leadership for a younger generation to show a way of doing it, whether it's the right or wrong way. But yeah, when I started, there was a lot of the industry was hard as nails,
Yeah.
in a lot of ways, and you expected to be whipped.
Yeah. It almost came with the territory, and people, you had to earn your stripes.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, there's something to be said for that. Experience and earning your way through there's definitely something to be said for that. But not at the expense of other people. And I think also just because you're young and, let's say, inexperienced compared to someone doing 25, 30 years on the job doesn't make you less competent. I think that's the other thing, is that a lot of people in our industry aren't graded at the quality of their work. They're graded at how long you've been in the industry. I think that's also a bit unfair. It should be down to quality of work and consistency of work. But
also learn so much from people coming up, because the creative energy that the youngsters have is incredible. The dynamism that they have, and the naivety of belief, of self-belief, where
yeah,
and
it's a powerful thing.
Yeah, and if you take a moment to actually to listen to some opinion, even if it's in the matter of as a site manager placing something in a certain positions, and why is it going there? Oh, because I have these 10 reasons. But this other kid might say,
yeah,
whatever, and that there's validity in people's opinions, and I think giving people the time and the opportunity to speak is so important.
Best gig and worst gig. Are you willing to share the good, the bad, and the ugly?
Yeah, I've thought a lot about it, and it's a really, really difficult question.
It is. It really is.
Because there's moments in almost every show that are shit, and there's moments in every single show, no matter how tough they are, that are incredible. So I think the Bloody Beetroots at Assembly for me goes down as a fundamentally important show. It to a certain extent drove the new electronic scene in South Africa. It precipitated discotheque and brought discotheque into the fold. We had done a few electronic shows, and we had never had that kind of energy. We had never had that kind of crowd. So that was a really exciting, defining moment for the scene. For me, it was one of the early international shows I did. It was also one of the shows that the Bloody Beetroots is an act that I found and liked, and thought would be epic to bring out. It wasn't necessarily a fully considered decision in terms of from a feasibility perspective, it was fine, but it wasn't okay, we're going to bring out an international act and we're going to do this. It's let's bring these guys out. They're awesome.
No, I was going to say there's a really cool personal investment into that kind of show. Then,
yeah,
it means something to you as well,
yeah.
Not just the show. There's some, I don't know, musical reward, if you will. I know that feeling. Yeah.
But when we did Ben Howard in Johannesburg, for instance, that show was unbelievable. Ben Howard had postponed his tour by 6 months, which was the first time that we had dealt with that. We put on the show. It was amazing. 7,000 people at Zoo Lake in Joburg. Show had gone really well. Ben Howard was performing the crescendo of his final song. Right in the midst of it, and boom, the generator explodes.
Oh man! At least the show was over.
No, it wasn't over. It was like,
wasn't it?
No, it was like,
well, it's over now.
It was like the last few bars of his big moment. Like builds up, lights are flashing, like and the sun has just come down and the lights are flashing, and he's going and the band is going, and they like come down for a moment to bring it up for the grand finale, and at that moment, and he comes screaming off stage because he had gone over curfew and he thought that we had cut him. Because
an angry artist is never fun.
So he came screaming off that, "Where is this motherfucker? I'm gonna kill him! Like I'm gonna beat the crap out of him! Like how can they do that to me?" Like, and then he turned around and saw the smoking generator. But yeah, I mean that was an interesting moment.
If you were to look back and go like, you've obviously experienced all different phases of the industry, and I'm sure the industry has carried many misconceptions, both inside the industry and people looking into it. What have you found is like the biggest misconception about our industry?
Glory.
Yeah, glamorous life, eh?
Yeah, glamour and glory, man. Like, I think as a youngster, some youngsters anyways, get into the industry because it seems like it's exciting and there's a certain celebrity to it, and there's like a mix and mingle and a fame and a, you know, and that's a huge misconception, especially for those of us that are lifers. You know, we've seen like, yes, we travel, but we're taking a red-eye flight after getting no sleep and, you know, onto another 26-hour show. And yeah, so it's not, I think the glamour and the glory is a huge one.
No, it's so true. You know, it's so interesting. Anyone who speaks, I think, is going to have that same answer. And I think people who are in for the glory and the glamour are they always get a shock to the system pretty early on and realize, okay, maybe this isn't for me. I think maybe that's also where the idea of like, you got to get your hands dirty kind of really came in, because you do have to get your hands dirty, and it's an easy way to dispel who's there for the glamour and the glory and who's not. And it's sometimes tough. I'll be honest, like I've had the real privilege of working with artists that I would love to go up to and say, please can I have a photo or an autograph? Massive fan. But yeah, you can't do it. It's just not professional. It's just not allowed. It's backstage is a sacred space. People are trusting you to behave professionally, and like fanboying is just not okay.
Yeah.
As hard as it may be, it's an amazing privilege you get to be on the stage, and you have to take it seriously. And I think it's the same thing with the events, and you know, you carry a massive privilege to be there, to be surrounded by these people, but the payoff is astronomical. You just don't get to share it with anyone else. There's no evidence except the memories that live in your mind about it.
Yeah.
On that note, just to round out the conversation, speaking of youngsters coming into the industry, advice you would give yourself when you first started out, or advice you would give to new guys coming into the industry, would it be the same advice? Would it be different advice? Wisdom from the legendary Blaise himself?
So if I had to give anybody advice coming into this, my first piece of advice would be, don't get lost in the party. The entertainment industry and working in the entertainment industry is just that. It's work to provide entertainment, and you are working. Make yourself available.
That's very good.
Nothing is too good for you.
For sure.
You know, if you're working a show and you see that the cleaners are struggling, pick up a bag and start helping. You know, if you're working a show and you can see there's pressure on the door, ask if you can respond people. You know, don't expect to be the lead tech on stage or on your second show.
Real talk now.
lug the boxes, lug them, pack the trucks, like be there and just be available and make yourself seen, sweat, learn, take it in, and take it away with you. And don't be afraid of like making a mistake. I think also
that's really good advice, man.
I want to put something out there as well. Like, I'm finding more and more the space I'm in that, I've gone through these experiences, and I'm keen and open to chatting to young people who are interested in our industry, to sharing experiences, to giving advice, to guiding where needed. So if there are youngsters out there that do want to chat, I mean, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on email.
Yeah,
drop me a line with a question or whatever. Yeah.
That's amazing, man. Yeah, we'll make sure all the contact information is in the video description.
And following on from what I've just said, I found a space and an opportunity to give back, and I find how fulfilling and rewarding that is. And I've seen others in our industry do the same. And that through that, we're able to create a better balance. We're able to lead by example, to create opportunities, to spot talent also. So to find the kids that like really are really hungry and that truly want it, and to give a better understanding of what our industry is about. So it's an incredibly rewarding process, and I'm very pleased to be able to work with Bridges for music as an example. Last year November we put together the Choose Love pop-up store, which rolled out in London, New York, and LA, and that was for help refugees, which is like living here more than ever is such a prevalent and important group of marginalized people, and they really need support.
Yeah, that's incredible, man. Yeah, it's important to give back. I want to know from you if there's one person you can in the industry who mentored you or who you look up to the most, who someone who guided you. Who's that one person who you want to give it like a shout out to be like, thanks?
I think if I didn't meet Elaine, it's Elaine Ferrier. If I didn't meet Elaine at the time I did, I would not be who I am now. I would not be where I am now, and I would definitely not have as many incredible experiences as I've had in my life. So in terms of that, in terms of like a really fundamental industry friend, I would be hard pressed to find somebody who's had as much influence as Elaine has, and it's become much more than an industry friendship, which I'm incredibly thankful and grateful for. Yeah,
that's the beautiful thing, I think, is that those industry friendships can evolve to be something so much more, and it just proves how important it is to kind of have those mentors. Everyone is supporting one another as they come up through whatever stage of life or part of a career. I think it's cool to talk about those people as well.
I mean, after all, it's the entertainment industry. It's about having a good time. If you're not having a good time with the people you're working with, what's the fucking point?
Exactly, yeah. And you spend more time with them than your family, so you might as well have a good time with them.
Exactly, and like as you say, it really is like the friendships and the bonds that I've developed through this industry have been absolutely incredible. And it still continues to this day. I still make new friends, that people that I stay in touch with well beyond the event space.
Incredible, man.
Yeah, like you, Johnny.
Yeah, it's been an absolute privilege, Blaise. Thank you, man.
Sorry, the only thing I can say is I hope that through what you're doing, it inspires people. Not specifically my talk here, but that what you're doing inspires people, gives people insights, gives people like myself an opportunity to share a little bit about a story, and helps create a healthier, more functioning, more cohesive, more collaborative industry. And like that for me would be the one thing I'd want to see developing out of this time. And moving forward, industry in 5 to 10 years, I think really like a healthier, better, more collaborative industry will be stronger for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the future of the industry depends on it right now. Yeah, the more we can encourage people to have conversations like this, I think the more people will feel supported and feel unified. That's the purpose of this whole conversation and this whole series as a whole, is just to support and connect with industry friends, and just create a safe space to inspire and unify our entire industry. So the goal here is to just use the hashtag and friends, and we encourage everyone else to kind of create these conversations amongst each other and post them online. Like, we want this to be as open to everyone as possible. It's just an idea. It's just that's all it is.
No, man, thanks for inviting me.
Cool.
Thanks for chatting with me. It's really cool.
Absolute pleasure. Otherwise, we'll see you all next time. Thanks for joining us.